My wedding dress was replaced with a rags costume by my mother-in-law. She smirked and said this suits your status better, but she never imagined who would show up. The morning sun streamed through my bedroom window as I traced my fingers over the wedding dress hanging on my closet door. In less than 24 hours, I'd be walking down the aisle to marry the love of my life. Everything was perfect, or at least that's what I desperately wanted to believe. I'm Autumn, and this should have been the happiest morning of my life. Instead, my stomach was in knots as I prepared to face another breakfast with my future mother-in-law. "Girl, you look like you're heading to a funeral, not your wedding rehearsal," Tessa said, barging into my room with 2 cups of coffee. My best friend had practically moved in this week to help with the preparations. "Here, caffeine fixes everything." "Thanks," I said, accepting the cup. I just can't shake this feeling that Mara's planning something. "Your mother-in-law from hell?" Tessa rolled her eyes. "When isn't she planning something?" The doorbell rang, and my heart skipped. Travis was early for breakfast. I hurried downstairs, nearly colliding with him in the hallway. His smile still made my knees weak even after 3 years together. "There's my beautiful bride," he said, pulling me into a kiss. "Travis, darling." Mara's voice cut through our moment like a knife. She swept in behind him, uninvited as usual. "Oh, Autumn, you're not dressed yet," and your hair. I forced a smile, very aware of my messy bun and yoga pants. "Good morning, Mara. We weren't expecting you for another hour." "Well, I thought I'd come early to help. There's so much to do, and we want everything to be." She paused, her eyes scanning our modest living room. "Adequate." Travis squeezed my hand. "Mom, please, we talked about this." "About what?" She blinked innocently. "I'm only trying to help. After all, it's not every day my only son marries." Another pointed pause. "Well, let's have breakfast, shall we?" Tessa appeared with a tray of freshly baked croissants. "These just came out of the oven. Autumn made them herself." "How quaint," Mara said, delicately picking one up. "In our family, we usually have our staff handle the cooking." "Well, in my family, we believe in doing things ourselves," I replied, my voice steady. "Travis loves my baking, don't you, honey?" "Best croissants I've ever had," he said, grabbing one and taking a big bite. Mara's perfectly lined lips twitched. "Yes. Well, speaking of the wedding, I took the liberty of making some last-minute changes to the seating arrangement." "What changes?" I asked, my coffee cup freezing halfway to my mouth. "Oh, just minor adjustments. I moved your cousin Rachel to the back. We can't have someone with blue hair in the primary wedding photos, can we? And your friend Jack, the one with the," she wrinkled her nose, "tattoos. He's now at the overflow table." "Mom," Travis interjected, "you can't just change things without asking." "Darling, I'm only thinking of the family photos. They'll be in our albums forever." I set my cup down carefully. "Mara, Rachel is my only remaining family since my parents passed. She's sitting at the main table, and that's final." The room went silent. Mara's eyes narrowed slightly, but her plastic smile remained fixed. "Of course, dear. It was merely a suggestion. Though I must say, if you're going to take that tone with me, perhaps we should discuss your choice of wedding dress again. That off-the-rack number is hardly befitting a Garcia bride." "The dress is perfect," Tessa cut in, "and it's already altered." "We'll see," Mara murmured so quietly, I almost missed it. Travis checked his watch. "Mom, we should head to the venue. The rehearsal starts in an hour." He kissed my cheek. "See you there, babe." As they left, Tessa grabbed my arm. "Did you hear what she said about the dress? Autumn, I don't trust her." "Neither do I admitted, watching through the window as Travis helped his mother into her Mercedes. "But what can she possibly do? The dress is locked safely in my closet, and tomorrow I'm marrying the man I love." "Just be careful," Tessa warned. "That woman has more schemes than a soap opera villain." I nodded, trying to ignore the growing unease in my stomach. Tomorrow was my wedding day, and nothing, not even Mara Garcia, was going to ruin it. At least that's what I thought at the time. I had no idea that in less than 24 hours, I'd be facing the biggest crisis of my life, or that karma was about to teach my future mother-in-law an unforgettable lesson. No, no, no. My scream echoed through the bridal suite as I stared at the garment bag in horror where my beautiful wedding dress should have been hung. What looked like a thrift store reject. Yellowed, stained, and at least 3 decades old. "What's wrong?" Tessa burst through the door, still in her robe. The other bridesmaids crowded behind her. My hands shook as I unzipped the bag completely. "My dress, it's gone. This thing is in its place." "That's impossible," Tessa said, rushing to my side. "I saw you hang it up last night after the rehearsal dinner. You double-checked everything." A soft knock at the door made us all jump. "Just checking if the bride is ready to start getting dressed," Mara's sickeningly sweet voice called out. "Don't let her in." I whispered to Tessa, but it was too late. Mara glided into the room immaculate in her designer outfit. "Oh my," she gasped, pressing a manicured hand to her chest. What happened to your dress, dear? The false concern in her voice made my blood boil. You know exactly what happened. Are you suggesting I had something to do with this? Mara's eyes widened in mock offense. Really, Autumn, your paranoia is showing. Perhaps this is a sign that you're not ready to join our family. Stop it, I snapped, stepping closer to her. Where's my dress? How should I know? Though, I must say, this older dress might be more appropriate for someone of your background. We can't all afford couture, can we? Tessa grabbed my arm before I could respond. I'm calling the police. Over a missing dress? Mara laughed. Don't be dramatic. The ceremony starts in 3 hours. Maybe you should focus on finding something else to wear instead of throwing around baseless accusations. As she turned to leave, she paused at the door. Oh, and, Autumn, do try to keep this little incident quiet. We wouldn't want to upset Travis on his big day, would we? The door clicked shut behind her, and I collapsed into a chair fighting back tears. That witch, Tessa fumed, pacing the room. She must have gotten a copy of the keycard somehow. I bet she has the dress hidden somewhere. We don't have time to search the whole venue, I said, my voice hollow. And she's right. We can't tell Travis. He's already stressed about his father not being here. Then we fight back, Tessa declared, pulling out her phone. Remember that boutique owner I told you about, Jasmine? She owes me a favor, and she's known for working miracles. A boutique owner can't help us now, I said, staring at the ruined dress. The ceremony's in 3 hours. Trust me, Tessa insisted, already dialing. Jasmine isn't just any boutique owner. She's another. Knock interrupted us. The wedding planner, Yvette, poked her head in. Everything okay? I just saw Mara looking rather pleased with herself. No. Everything is not okay, Tessa exploded, explaining the situation. Yvette's face darkened. I've worked hundreds of weddings, but I've never seen a mother-in-law stoop this low. Want me to accidentally spill red wine on her dress? Despite everything, I laughed. No, we need to be smarter than that. An idea began forming in my mind. Tessa, make that call. Yvette, I need you to keep Mara busy. Give her some crisis to manage. Something about the catering maybe? On it, Yvette said with a wink. I can stage quite a convincing meltdown about the wrong appetizers being delivered. As they sprang into action, I stood up and faced the mirror. My reflection showed a woman on the edge of either a breakdown or a breakthrough. Mara wanted to humiliate me to prove I didn't belong in her perfect world, but she had no idea who she was dealing with. Jasmine's on her way, Tessa announced, ending her call. She says to tell you she's bringing reinforcements. I nodded, a calm determination replacing my panic. Good, because we're not just going to fix this. We're going to make sure Mara never forgets this day. What are you planning? Tessa asked, a slow smile spreading across her face. Let's just say, I replied, picking up the ruined dress. Karma's about to make a very fashionable entrance. The next 3 hours would either make or break my wedding day. But as I heard Yvette's voice down the hall, already launching into her performance about mixed-up food orders, I felt a surge of hope. Mara thought she had won, but she was about to learn a valuable lesson about underestimating the wrong bride. The bridal suite door burst open exactly 20 minutes later, revealing a striking woman in her 40s wheeling a large garment bag. Behind her, a tall man struggled with what looked like a mobile workshop of sewing supplies. So we have a mother-in-law situation? Jasmine asked, sweeping into the room like a force of nature. Her eyes fell on the ruined dress and narrowed. Oh, this is personal. Jasmine, thank you for coming. Tessa rushed forward. This is Autumn. Darling, save the thanks. When Tessa told me what happened, I canceled 3 appointments. No one ruins a bride's day on my watch. She turned to her assistant. Asher, set up over there. We have 2 hours and 40 minutes. I watched in amazement as Asher transformed a corner of the suite into a mini atelier complete with a portable sewing machine and what seemed like endless supplies. Now, Jasmine said, unzipping her garment bag. Let's see what we have to work with. She pulled out something that made my jaw drop, a stunning white gown that seemed to shimmer in the light. That's a Jasmine Clark original. I gasped, finally recognizing her. You're the Jasmine Clark? The one and only, she winked. And this is just the beginning. Asher, the lace panels. But these dresses cost a fortune, I protested. I can't possibly stop right there. Jasmine held up a hand. Your mother worked for me for 15 years. Sarah was more than an employee. She was family. When Tessa mentioned your name, I knew exactly who you were. Tears welled in my eyes at the mention of my mother. You knew her? She was my head seamstress until the accident, and she would be damned if she let some stuck-up society woman ruin her daughter's wedding day. Jasmine's eyes softened. Now let's make some magic. The next 2 hours were a blur of activity. Jasmine and Asher worked with incredible precision transforming the dress while Tessa ran interference keeping curious bridesmaids at bay. Through the door, We could hear Yvette still orchestrating her catering crisis, keeping Mara thoroughly distracted. "Almost there," Jasmine muttered, making minute adjustments. "Asher, the pearl detailing." A knock at the door made us all freeze. "Autumn, it's Travis. Mom said something about problems with your dress." My heart stopped. "Just a minor issue, honey. Everything's fine. Are you sure?" "I can help." "No." We all shouted in unison. "It's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding," Tessa called out, shooting me a panicked look. "Okay." Travis sounded uncertain. "But if you need anything, she's in good hands," Jasmine called out, putting the final touches on the dress. "Your bride will be ready on time, Mr. Garcia." After his footsteps faded, I turned to the mirror and gasped. The dress was beyond anything I could have imagined. The original gown had been transformed with delicate lace overlays and hand-sewn pearl details that caught the light with every movement. "There's just one thing missing," Jasmine said, reaching into her bag. She pulled out a small vintage-looking hair clip. "Your mother wore this at her wedding. She left it with me for safekeeping, saying someday it would be yours." My hands trembled as I took the clip. I thought all her things were lost in the move after she knew what she was doing. Jasmine smiled. "Now let's get you into this dress. We have a mother-in-law to educate about karma." As Tessa and Jasmine helped me into the gown, Asher peeked out the door. "Heads up, the dragon lady is heading this way, and she looks smug." "Perfect timing," Jasmine said, making a final adjustment. "Autumn, are you ready?" I stood tall, feeling the smooth fabric settle around me. "More than ready." "Remember," Jasmine whispered, "the best revenge isn't just about getting even. It's about rising above while looking absolutely fabulous." The door handle turned, and I could practically feel Mara's anticipation of my humiliation on the other side. But as I caught my reflection one last time, I knew she was in for a surprise. The woman in the mirror wasn't a victim. She was a vision, and she was about to teach her future mother-in-law an unforgettable lesson about messing with the wrong bride. "Places, everyone," Jasmine commanded softly. "It's showtime." Mara's face as she entered the room was a study in shock. Her perfectly painted mouth fell open, and for once, she seemed completely lost for words. "Oh, Mara," I exclaimed with fake brightness. "I'm so glad you're here. I wanted to thank you." "Thank me?" she stammered, her eyes fixed on my transformed dress. "Yes, if you hadn't pointed out the issues with my original dress, I never would have had the opportunity to wear this." I turned slowly, letting the fabric catch the light. "It's a Jasmine Clark original." "You do know Jasmine Clark, don't you?" Jasmine stepped forward, her presence commanding the room. "Mara, what a pleasure. I don't believe we've met, though I've heard so much about you." The color drained from Mara's face. "Jasmine Clark? But how? Why are you?" "Let's just say I have a personal interest in ensuring Autumn has the perfect wedding day," Jasmine replied smoothly. "Though I am curious about what happened to her original dress. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you?" Mara's composure cracked slightly. "I am sure I don't know what you mean." "Really?" I moved closer to her, my voice low, because the security cameras in the hallway might tell a different story. "Should we ask the venue manager to check the footage?" "Are you threatening me?" Mara hissed, but I caught the flicker of fear in her eyes. "Not at all. I'm simply making conversation." "Oh, and I should mention, Jasmine's dress designs are quite popular with the society magazines. I'm sure they'll be very interested in featuring today's wedding." Tessa, catching on immediately, chimed in. "Oh, yes. I've already had 3 photographers ask about getting exclusive shots of the bride. They're especially interested in family photos." Mara's hands clenched at her sides. "You wouldn't dare make a spectacle of this." "Make a spectacle?" I laughed softly. "But isn't that exactly what you wanted? Though perhaps not quite the kind you had in mind." A knock at the door interrupted us. Yvette poked her head in. "5-minute warning, everyone." "Oh, Mrs. Garcia. The catering crisis has been resolved. Though we did have to make some last-minute changes to the seating arrangement to accommodate the photographer from Vogue." "Vogue," Mara whispered, looking faint. "Don't worry," I said sweetly. "I'm sure you'll photograph beautifully. Though you might want to touch up your makeup, you look a little pale." Mara turned on her heel and fled the room, nearly colliding with Asher in the doorway. "That," Tessa declared, "was magnificent." But our triumph was short-lived. As Jasmine made a final inspection of the dress, her face suddenly tensed. "We have a problem. The back closure. There's a crucial hook missing. Without it, the dress won't stay properly secured during the ceremony." "Can't we just pin it?" Tessa suggested desperately. "Not with this fabric." Jasmine shook her head. "We need a specific type of closure, and we're out of time." My heart sank. After everything, was Mara going to win after all? "Wait," Asher said suddenly. "That vintage clip in your hair, could we modify it?" Jasmine's eyes lit up. "Autumn, may I see your mother's clip?" I carefully removed it from my hair, my hand shaking slightly as I handed it over. Jasmine examined it closely, then smiled. This is perfect, Asher. My tools. Working with incredible speed, Jasmine modified the clip into an elegant closure that not only secured the dress, but added an extra touch of vintage beauty to the design. Your mother, she said softly as she worked, always said that sometimes the best solutions are hidden in plain sight. There. It's done. I blinked back tears as I felt the dress settle perfectly into place. My mother's clip transformed just like the dress would help me walk down the aisle. Places, everyone, Yvette called from the doorway. We're ready to begin. As my bridesmaids hurried to line up, Jasmine squeezed my hand. Remember, darling, you're not just wearing a dress. You're wearing your mother's love, my art, and your own strength. Now go show Mara what real class looks like. I took a deep breath and moved toward the door. In just a few minutes, I would walk down the aisle to marry Travis. And his mother? Well, she was about to learn that some lessons come wrapped in silk and lace. Ready? Tessa whispered, handling me my bouquet. I nodded, feeling stronger than ever. Ready to make history. The hallway outside the ceremony space buzzed with last-minute activity. As I waited for my cue, I overheard raised voices around the corner. I recognized them immediately. Travis and Mara. Mom, what did you do? Travis's voice was sharp with anger. I don't know what you're talking about, Mara replied, but her voice wavered. Don't lie to me. The venue manager just showed me the security footage. I saw you sneaking into the bridal suite last night with a garment bag. My heart pounded. Someone had already shown Travis the footage? Darling, I was just trying to protect you. Mara pleaded. That girl? She's not from our world. She'll never understand our way of life. Our way of life? Travis's laugh was bitter. You mean looking down on everyone else? Treating people like they're beneath us? That's not my way of life, Mom. That's yours. Everything I've done has been for you. No. Travis cut her off. Everything you've done has been about control, just like with Dad. The silence that followed was deafening. Don't you dare bring your father into this, Mara hissed. Why not? Isn't this exactly why he left? Because you tried to control every aspect of his life until he couldn't take it anymore? I pressed myself against the wall, hardly daring to breathe. In 3 years, Travis had never spoken about his father's departure. Your father was weak, Mara spat. He chose to walk away from everything we built. No, Mom, he chose freedom over your manipulation. And if you don't stop this now, if you don't accept Autumn and treat her with respect, you're gonna lose me too. Footsteps approached, and I quickly moved away from the wall, pretending to adjust my dress. Travis rounded the corner, stopping short when he saw me. Autumn, he breathed, taking in the dress. You look incredible. You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony, I said softly. He stepped closer, his eyes suspiciously bright. I'm so sorry about my mother. I had no idea she would. Hey, I touched his cheek. This isn't your fault, but it is. I should have seen it coming. I should have protected you. Travis, I met his eyes. I don't need protection. What I need is a partner who stands by me, and that's exactly what you just did. A throat cleared behind us. Jasmine stood there looking elegant and authoritative. As touching as this is, we have a wedding to start. Travis, your place is at the altar. Autumn, let's get you in position. As Travis reluctantly headed toward the ceremony space, Jasmine adjusted my dress one final time. The photographers are ready. Mara won't know what hit her. I heard everything. I whispered about Travis's father. Yes. Jasmine nodded. Robert Garcia, a good man who finally had enough of Mara's games. Sometimes the kindest people take the longest to reach their breaking point. The wedding march began to play softly. That's your cue, Jasmine said, stepping back. Show them what real grace looks like. I took my position, clutching my bouquet. Through the doors, I could see the packed ceremony space, cameras discreetly positioned to capture every moment. Mara sat in the front row, her face a mask of barely contained fury. The doors opened fully and every head turned. I heard the collective gasp as people took in the dress. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the photographers' cameras clicking rapidly, but my focus was entirely on Travis standing at the altar with tears in his eyes and the proudest smile I'd ever seen. Each step down the aisle felt like a victory. The dress moved like liquid silver, my mother's transformed clip securing everything perfectly. As I passed Mara, I caught her eye and gave her my sweetest smile. You look beautiful, Travis whispered as I reached him. Thanks to your mother, I whispered back just loud enough for Mara to hear. If she hadn't helped create this situation, I never would have had the chance to wear a Jasmine Clark original. I suppose we should thank her. From her seat, Mara's face turned an interesting shade of purple, but as the officiant began to speak, I noticed something else. Behind her carefully maintained facade, there was fear. She was finally realizing that her actions hadn't just failed to humiliate me. They had backfired spectacularly, and we were just getting started. The ceremony began, but this was more than just a wedding now. It was a statement about standing up to bullies, about rising above pettiness, and about the way karma sometimes arrives wearing couture. The ceremony flowed perfectly into the reception where the real show was about to begin. As Travis and I made our entrance into the beautifully decorated hall, the photographer from Vogue approached us. "Mrs. Garcia," she addressed me deliberately using my new surname. "Would you mind if we did a special feature on your dress? It's causing quite a buzz already." "Of course," I smiled, catching Mara's expression darkening from across the room, though the real story behind it is quite interesting. "Oh," the photographer leaned in, pen poised over her notebook. "You see, my original dress mysteriously disappeared this morning, but then something magical happened." "Autumn," Mara interrupted, appearing suddenly at my side. "Perhaps this isn't the best time for interviews." "Nonsense." Jasmine's voice rang out as she joined our group. "Every bride should share her special story, especially when it involves one of my emergency wedding dress rescues." The photographer's eyes widened. "Jasmine Clark, you designed this dress in record time too." Jasmine nodded. "Though, we should really thank Autumn's mother-in-law. If she hadn't created such an urgent situation, we might never have collaborated on this piece." "What exactly do you mean by urgent situation?" the photographer asked, scribbling furiously. Mara's face paled. "I'm sure no one wants to hear about boring wedding day mishaps." "Oh, but they do," Tessa chimed in, smartphone in hand. "In fact, the video of you sneaking into the bridal suite last night is already getting attention on social media." "Video?" Mara choked out. "The venue's security footage," Travis said coldly. "Very clear quality, actually." The photographer was practically salivating. "So this was more than just a last-minute dress change?" "Actually," I said sweetly, "it's a beautiful story about overcoming adversity, about how sometimes when people try to tear you down, fate sends you angels instead." I gestured to Jasmine. "Would you like to hear about my mother's connection to Jasmine Clark?" "Don't you dare," Mara hissed under her breath. "Is there a problem, Mara?" I asked loudly enough for nearby guests to turn their heads. "You seem upset, almost as upset as when you discovered your plan to humiliate me backfired." The photographer's pen flew across her notebook. Mara looked around desperately, realizing she was trapped in a situation of her own making. "I need some air," she stammered, turning to flee. "Before you go," Jasmine called after her, "you should know that this dress will be featured in our upcoming collection. We're calling it the Phoenix Beauty Rising from Attempted Destruction." "Poetic, isn't it?" Mara froze mid-step, her shoulders stiffening. "Oh, and Mara," I added, "the original dress you took, it was a decoy. We suspected you might try something like this, so we kept the real one somewhere safe. But thanks to you, I ended up with something even better." The look on her face was priceless as she fled the reception hall. Several guests whispered and pointed, the story already spreading through the crowd. "That," the photographer said, "is going to make one hell of a feature." Travis pulled me close. "You knew she would try to sabotage the dress?" "Let's just say I learned from the best." I smiled, nodding toward Jasmine. "Your mother isn't the only one who can plan ahead." Speaking of planning, Jasmine interjected, "I believe it's time for the mother-son dance, though it seems we're missing half of the pair." Travis looked toward the door his mother had fled through, then back at me. "I think I know someone more deserving of that dance." He turned to Jasmine and extended his hand. "Would you do me the honor? You've been more of a mother figure today than mine has been in years." Jasmine's composed facade cracked slightly, genuine emotions showing through. "I would be delighted." As they moved to the dance floor, Tessa appeared at my side. "Mission accomplished?" "Almost," I said, watching Travis and Jasmine dance while photographers captured the moment. "But I think karma has one more surprise in store for Mara." "What do you mean?" I smiled, thinking of the envelope in my purse, the one containing a letter from Travis's father that had arrived this morning. Let's just say the universe has perfect timing. The reception continued, a celebration not just of love, but of justice served with elegance and style. And somewhere in the venue, Mara was learning the hard way that some battles aren't worth fighting, especially against a bride who refuses to be broken. Mara's return to the reception was like a thundercloud rolling in. She marched straight to the microphone just as Travis and I finished our first dance, her face set with grim determination.